Hello and welcome to another Health Bite. Today I wanted to share a story about Joe. Joe was a young, dynamic guy. He had lots of friends, life was busy, he was working his way up the corporate ladder, and he packed a lot in, and he didn't always have time to find the healthiest things, but his body seemed to be able to take a lot, and so he frequently pushed the envelope. And from time to time, his body would speak to him, and in various ways. One morning he would wake up with nausea, and he would want to just turn around and go back to bed, but he had a boss to account to, and after all, he was going places in his job. So instead of listening to his body and resting and perhaps looking at what might have triggered the nausea or what he ate the night before. On the way to work, Joe stopped at the local pharmacy, and he was able to get some anti-nausea pills from across the counter. He popped those pills, and in no time at all, Joe was pretty much feeling back to normal, and he packed in a full day, and he felt that had sorted the problem, and so life continued in much the same vein, pushing things often to the edge, meeting the demands of bosses and work colleagues and family and friends, and on another occasion he found that his bowel was, he had a runny stomach, and so this time on the way to work, this was not convenient for Joe. He had lots of meetings to attend that day, and so rather than take time out and let his bowel do what it was trying to do, cleanse itself, again he popped in at the pharmacy on the way, and he got some Imodium to just prevent his stomach from running. And again, in no time at all, the problem appeared to be fixed, and life continued as usual. And so no lessons were learned, no conclusions were made, and life continued like this for many years, and at times Joe would be exhausted, and he would take an energy boost, or have a few coffees to make sure he met those deadlines, but still his body kept beckoning to him to listen to the fact that all was not as it should be. But Joe didn't understand that this was the greater wisdom of his body, speaking to him gently, guiding him, inviting him to explore what wasn't serving him, and to address the cause, so that he didn't need to pop these quick fix meds to address the symptoms that kept popping up from time to time. Another time it was a cough that seemed to persist for ages, or cold or flu. At one stage he had a rash, and he popped in at his doctor, in the midst of his busy routine, and he was prescribed a cortisone cream, and that worked for a while as he covered the eczema rash with the cortisone cream. But again, all these meds, all these quick fixes were purely serving as the proverbial plaster to what was really going on in Joe's body, how his cellular terrain was struggling under the excessive demand, the excessive hours, the diet that wasn't serving Joe. And yet Joe had bigger aspirations. He didn't have time to slow down. He didn't have time, or so he thought, to look at the underlying cause, to address that, so that he didn't need to rely on these drugs that would help for a while, but never ever treat the real reason for Joe's symptoms. And then one day, many years down the road, Joe really wasn't feeling well, and he popped in at his local doctor and had a few tests run and had an x-ray. And afterwards, his doctor called him in and said, "No, Joe, I'm really sorry to say, but the x-ray shows that you have cancer." And Joe was stupefied. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. His doctor was suggesting that he should start chemo and radiation immediately. And Joe thought to himself, but where did this come from? You know, it happened so suddenly, out of the blue. But of course, there was nothing out of the blue about it. Joe's body had been speaking to him, had been begging him for years to take note of the fact that his lifestyle, his dietary choices, his ever pressing of the envelope of life was not serving his body's greater good, and that these symptoms were in fact a sign from his body's extraordinary wisdom, inviting, eventually begging Joe to slow down, to take the time to truly address the cause. And so I invite you, dear friend, to listen to your body's infinite wisdom, because it speaks to you, initially in whispers, and finally in ever greater and more urgent pleas, and eventually, if we don't address it, in life-threatening diagnoses. Don't ignore your body's extraordinary mechanisms to guide you towards better health, to make better decisions. Don't put it off. Prevention is always better than cure. And understand that the symptoms, the way in which your body speaks to you, are always a sign of what your body is doing right, not wrong. And never should we respond by suppressing these symptoms, masking them, ignoring them, but instead to take the time out to respond in turn to what it is indeed saying to us. And when we do, and when we address the cause, well, the symptoms go away, and they go away for good. Please remember Joe's story and ensure that you take the time to listen to what your body is saying, to get the guidance from natural practitioners if you should need to help you to interpret what your body is saying and to respond most appropriately in turn to those gentle and eventually more urgent pleas to be heard. Your body loves you. Your body is always working in accordance with your greatest good. Listen to it, and it will serve you and support you in extraordinary health all the days of your life. So much love.